It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today, my guest is John Rohde, most recently CEO of Res Americas. John has more than 30 years of experience working in the energy market. At Res Americas, John is responsible for overseeing development, construction, operations, and maintenance and asset management for wind, solar, energy, and storage products in North America. Prior to this role, John was Chief Operating Officer of ENGIE Services North America, overseeing operations in energy services, construction, facilities management, as well as M&A and managing the integration of acquisitions. John started his career with Siemens Energy, moving to Mitsubishi International. He was also general manager of Worley's North American power engineering business. John has a wealth of knowledge regarding the America's energy markets. He is passionate about health and safety, diversity and inclusion, and is committed to working to decarbonize the energy sector as part of driving the energy transition. In addition, he has an MBA from the University of Houston and a BS in mechanical engineering degree from The Ohio State University. John is married, based in Houston, and in his spare time likes to travel and spend time with friends and his 2 rescue dogs. John Rohde, welcome into the corner office.
Thank you, Brad.
Great to have you here. Where does the podcast find you today?
Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. Very early morning in Houston, Texas.
That's correct.
Appreciate you carving out some time. Well, we like to get started, obviously, with our CEOs, kind of where they got started. So tell us a little bit about your early years, where you grew up and what your early family life was like.
I grew up in the Midwest. I am a Cleveland native, grew up south of Cleveland. I have 3 younger brothers, and we, spent our time, most of the time in sports. We were competitive and, played soccer. And for my age, soccer was, that was at the beginning here in the States.
Relatively new sport, right?
Yeah, correct. And then we played basketball and baseball. And we were all, we're within 10 years. So I'm the oldest and I have 3 younger brothers.
Right. Awesome. Mom and dad, what kind of work do they do?
Mom was at home taking care of us, and my
Pretty
father,
busy with 4 boys. I can
yes,
imagine.
yeah, especially with sports. We played
Right.
both in the city and for the school and clubs, and some weekends we would have a club soccer match and a school soccer match. So it was a little overwhelming for them.
Busy.
And my father worked for NASA. He
Oh, really?
was,
Cool.
yep, an aerospace engineer. So
Wow. Rocket scientist.
absolutely, yeah. That is one of, as I think about my education and where my brothers ended up, that he was at the edge of what was possible, flying, his entire career.
Did he come from the engineering side? Was he a pilot? What was kind of his, background before working for NASA?
Mechanical engineer.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Cool. And so operations there in Ohio, where you were growing up?
Yes, there's the Lewis Research Center,
Okay.
just next to the airport in Cleveland.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, did you ever get a chance to get to any really cool flights and, see some of the launches and so forth? Or was that not part of the family benefit, so to speak?
No, and I think it's now called the John Glenn
Right. Famous,
NASA
famous Ohioan. Yeah. Right.
Right. I think they renamed it, but no, there were no launches. There were wind tunnels at this NASA location, so we never got to see a launch or a different type of plane takeoff. He would typically head to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base
Right.
in Dayton, where they would do some of the testing.
But you saw the wind tunnel would be the testing of some of the rockets and so forth. So that must have been kind of cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was, and it was much bigger than you'd think, and it was interesting for a little kid. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Wow, fun. Well, thinking back, John, and thinking about some of the things that might have influenced you or inspired you, what do you remember about, either mom and dad, or was there a coach or a teacher or an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent that, had an impact on you during those early years?
I think it was mostly my father.
Yeah.
I seem to have pretty good technical aptitude, and as the oldest son, as I went through school, I was really good at math and sciences and terrible at English, which is, I think, the typical combination for ending up being an engineer or going into a technical educational
Well,
educational focus. But my father was absolutely had the single biggest influence in my
yeah, yeah.
decisions
Well,
early on.
we'll get to that in a minute, but you went on to the Ohio State University and got your ME degree as well. So obviously some educational guidance there. Did you find that your dad kind of mentored you with regards to that interest, or did it kind of come naturally to you?
No, I not at all. I just had a technical aptitude, and I
Yeah,
went to the Ohio State University. So
right.
the and I say that jokingly. No, as I thought about what I was going to do in college, I said, "Oh, I can do, math really well. So let me, go into engineering." And and I focused on mechanical engineering. And what I really wanted to do probably was to be a lawyer in patent law. So
Oh,
I started off in mechanical engineering, and co-opted quite a few times, but engineering was an incredibly tough major to get through. So
right.
the first few years were really challenging, in a good way, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah, can imagine. Absolutely. And getting back to kind of high school and junior high, were you a pretty good student? Did you find that you had a good preparatory for college during those years?
Yes, I think I was the top male in my class. I was uh, incredibly competitive,
Yeah.
both in sports and at school and in learning. Not uh, wasn't there wasn't any strategy. It just, I wanted to win. So
Right.
that was part of it, and getting the top score on a test, or really working hard to successfully deliver, a assignment, or things that I just did, probably, just part of my DNA.
Yeah.
Same with sports.
And soccer was your main sport. Were there other sports that you played through high school?
Basketball and baseball.
Yeah,
Not
basketball.
through high school, only soccer.
Only soccer. Yeah.
Yeah, as I transitioned from one school to a high school, they did not. I was not set up for basketball or to play competitive baseball, but soccer I can continue with a club.
Yeah. And what about work? Did you, kind of pursue any entrepreneurial activities? Did you work through your high school years?
Not entrepreneurial, but waiting tables. Yes,
Okay. All right. That's a good one.
that's probably, you get to meet people all day, whether they're in a good mood or a bad mood, and you rely on tips. So there's a strategy there to, no matter what, ultimately make them happy
Sure.
at the meal. So
Well, that's some good customer service exposure, right? That's
yeah,
a
yeah,
good
absolutely.
industry to live in. And going to college, was that something, pretty much predetermined? Mom and dad had that in mind for you, and you were committed to that from an early age, or did that was it kind of left up to your own choice?
No, I don't. And today it's interesting as I watch nieces and nephews make that decision.
Yeah.
There wasn't a conversation. It was no gap year, no travel, no,
You're going, yeah.
opportunity to do well. And and I don't remember even having a "you're going" conversation. It was just, I was a junior in high school. I was taking the test.
Right.
Early my senior year, I was applying. I was getting accepted. We were visiting schools, and then I went to college. It was just, it was like the next grade
Yeah.
after
Right.
I finished 12th. So it was
Right.
just an interesting. It's it. I I don't know how to connect it to the decisions that a lot of my nieces and nephews are even making today.
It's different today, yeah, and
Yes.
and and I think, frankly, for good reason. I think there's a lot of kids, particularly if we look at that, the Gen Xers and even among the millennials, where they've got all this college debt, and many of them don't like the work they're going into. And I think that's one thing. We were talking about Europe a little earlier. They really try to put people that are more kind of geared towards vocational types of jobs earlier on. When they're in their teens. And we have a dearth of people that are going into HVAC repair or electricianal work. I mean, you try to get anything done in South Florida where I live full time, and you'll be lucky if you can find a contractor that shows up more than once. So it's
No, and that's I agree because in many of the companies that I've been working for and leading, we have construction businesses, and
right.
finding good skilled labor has been an incredible challenge,
It's tough. Yeah.
and retention of that skilled labor has been even more challenging when $1 or $2 has them moving to a new job.
Yep. Yep. A lot of bouncing around. You went on to get an MBA a little bit later, I believe. Now, or did you do that straight out of the Ohio State University?
Sorry about that. I misheard you, and I thought you said Iowa, and I wanted to make sure that we weren't. I was not a Hawkeye. I'm a
Oh no,
Buckeye.
no.
So,
I'm always very clear about the Ohio State University. But
no,
you did that down in Texas, I think, right? So it must have been a
yeah,
little late in your career.
right. I
Yeah,
was working at ENGIE at the time,
right.
and there was every one of my performance reviews included continuing education. So I
Mm,
did the continuing education. It was a lot of fun to get it and to round out my knowledge.
yeah. What was that first job that you got coming out of undergrad?
Working at Westinghouse, which is now
Was it?
Siemens,
Yeah.
in Orlando. They have a. It was in the. It was in. I was my title was new apparatus product line marketing and manager. And the reason why, clearly that's a long title and odd, but that's why it's stuck. It was selling steam turbines to the IPPs and to utilities as combined cycles started to get traction, and the deregulation started to, speed up, only in the U.S. and then globally.
Did you look at both, more ME focused, engineering types of jobs as well as sales jobs coming out? Because, as an ME, you kind of have that choice, but you went down the sales route. Tell us a little bit about that thought process, John.
Oh, that's a great question. And before I said I wanted to go and potentially be a patent lawyer,
Right.
the challenge of getting an ME at Ohio State at the time was so overwhelming for me that there was no way I was going to spend another day in school.
Hmm.
And then I was mad at my father because he was an engineer, and now I'm going to be doing calculations and design work the rest of my life with my head down. So I was absolutely not going to head down that path. So I looked for a commercial route, and Westinghouse had a technical marketing program
Ah,
was the idea. And so the thought was if you had commercial acumen, you could sell a product or be on the sales side, but understand what the engineer's questions are and get those answers to them. So it was kind of like a having that technical skill and being able to connect well with a customer, but then also be able to sell them a product. And that was
Right.
kind of the philosophy that they had in the program.
Yeah, cool. And did you have some leadership responsibilities there early on at Westinghouse? Were you managing people?
Not managing people, but managing pursuits and market entry.
Yeah,
So
teams.
Westinghouse
Yeah.
had exited for the selling new steam turbines for years, and I was fortunate enough to be, put in the group that was relaunching um, that part of the business. And as a result, it was calling customers, getting that first meeting, figuring out how to get on the bid list, and it
Right.
was a lot of that business building early on.
Yeah. And were you utilizing your technical skills then? Did you find that that ME degree helped you in that technical sales capacity?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was because we were when we would get on a bid list, we'd have to prepare a proposal, and the proposal, had all the commercial and all the technical,
Right.
and then you'd go through a review and get questions from the customer as they were evaluating your proposal, and being able to go back into the to go back to the appropriate engineering team, get that answer, understand the answer, so that then you can communicate it back to the
Right.
potential buyer was important.
Yeah. Cool. And so when did you start leading and managing people? Was that at Mitsubishi? Was it your first stint in ENGIE? When did you take on those roles?
Yeah, the first stint at ENGIE, and it was in development. So
Uh-huh.
at Mitsubishi, it was really, entrepreneurial, building a business, selling steam turbines and major power generation equipment. But it was, networking to get bids and to pursue opportunities, but it was also networking inside of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Mitsubishi Electric to get support for, bidding on opportunities that I had here in the U.S. versus everything that they were pursuing or looking at globally.
Right. But then NG brought you down to Houston for the first time, correct?
Correct.
And then,
And then I
and
was doing development work for in ENGIE was an IPP, and the first version of or the first name when I joined the group was Tractable. At the time, it was really headquartered in Belgium, but
hmm,
owned by Suez at the time, and they were the developing independent power projects globally, and that's the group I joined when I moved here to Houston in '89. And it took a couple years before I was managing folks because I was, learning development from
right.
people that I reported up to.
And then had a business development team that you led for quite some time. You were there about 13, 14 years the first time, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And yes, the it was after Enron, the market maker disappeared for trading, and we bought a asset in New York City. And after that, that was really the point at which I stepped into managing a team
Yeah.
responsible for a bigger scope of M&A and also development work.
And were you managing non-technical people at that stage? Tell us a little bit about that and maybe some of the challenges you had during those days of, your first time managing.
Yes, non-technical folks that were reporting up to me, and some technical, people that were reporting up through me. The challenge more was for me, it was getting people to think outside the box on
Mm,
how to solve problems. There's typically there are commercial issues, there are technical issues, and making sure that they're contributing in a way that is meaningful for them, but they're kind of figuring it out and giving you the answer, rather than bringing you all the issues, unpackaged, without a real summary and a potential solution. That I think was probably one of the biggest challenges early on in my career.
Yeah, yeah. And then you left there and then eventually came back, but it was after some time. Tell us a little bit about kind of that decision to leave ENGIE the first time, and then, kind of what brought you back several years
Uh,
later.
okay, the first exit from ENGIE was due to really the renewables space in the U.S. starting to pick up, and with tax equity becoming a meaningful part of
Revenue stream,
the
yeah.
revenue stream for renewables. But the challenge, though, for ENGIE at the time was after the merger with GDF, we no longer recognized equity method accounting results, so we had to control the business. I couldn't figure that piece out and how to attract more investments back to the U.S. So then that's when I looked outside of ENGIE and joined Worley. And at Worley, I was responsible for strategy and new initiatives before convincing them through a strategic review to put the different disparate businesses that had in power back together and creating, a theoretical center of excellence here in the States that we could leverage globally and in the U.S. to win more work. It was engineering for fossil, nuclear, and renewables and transmission and substations. And that's the first time I landed in P&L. They asked me to run it after that strategic shift.
And then coming back, did they come after you? Were there opportunities, or did things change? What kind of led to your rejoining them back in
Oh, right.
2016?
And then, in fact, the hydrocarbon space from 2012 to 2016, hydrocarbon and mining and minerals it was a tough time, and Worley was a very big hydrocarbon and mining and minerals company, and they were reorganizing quite a few. They reorganized quite a few times, unfortunately responding to the downturn in the market, and power was a very small part of that. So we were moving around quite a bit as far as how we were perceived and inside the business and where it reported. So I looked at opportunities outside of Worley, and the person I had worked for in development now was the president of the LNG business, and they had a challenging supply contract to the Northeast that they needed to restructure. And because I had strong commercial acumen, didn't know LNG at the time, but because I had strong commercial acumen, they brought me back, and I spent the next year working on restructuring that deal, landing in a positive place for the business. But that was the reason I rejoined ENGIE in 2016.
And then learned the liquefied natural gas business as well as you did so.
Yes, it was interesting. It's an interesting supply demand dynamic, and the supply was coming from Trinidad, from Atlantic LNG, and we were regasifying it in a terminal that ENGIE owned just outside of Boston.
Yeah, cool. And got into general management there, right? You had as COO of one of the services businesses, and then general manager of a large P&L. Just before we talk about leaving ENGIE and going to your first CEO assignment, some of the leadership things that you've learned, again, just kind of, now getting to that level where you're now handling a P&L, you're obviously got a much larger organization. How would you say kind of your leadership evolved over that period of time?
Well, I had very good people that I had the opportunity to work for. I learned, how to be very detailed and understanding, at a very low level, or no, very with a high degree of accuracy, how a project would be put together. So on the development side, there was a gentleman I worked for that was very detailed oriented, and that helped me really understand how to put all the pieces together. And, it was something that's helped me to be able to do, to be able to lead groups and dig in when necessary. So I understand conceptually how things are put together. I worked with another manager that really engaged all the stakeholders in a process, and that's proved invaluable for me. And also about being transparent through our careers. None of us make enough money to take crazy risks. It's about bringing people along when things are going well, and also when there are challenges. And
Yeah.
these folks really helped me get my head around, how to lead and how to be successful and moving the ball forward.
Now you left ENGIE after about 5 years of that time. So I think combined 18, 19 years or so with them, and went into your most recent CEO role at Res. Was it hard to leave the second time? Harder than the first or easier?
Well, I don't know, harder or easier. It was really more the opportunity I was going to. So
Yeah,
in my career, ended up leaving because of a situation at that prior employer. It was
right.
more going towards something
Yeah,
in each case, and this was a opportunity to lead a team for the first time, and was across parts of businesses that I was very familiar with.
yeah.
So development and construction, not so much the asset management O&M, but that was uh, it was a really good fit for me.
Yeah, and the company obviously is in the similar space that you'd worked in. Had you done any work with them before? Were you familiar with them, or did they come after you through a recruiter or someone from the outside?
Yes, I had many years prior to the recruiter contacted me for this opportunity. I knew of Res, and they had come to the U.S. Or to North America with
Right,
renewables and wind turbines. And at the time I was developing gas-fired generation combined cycles, and it was incredibly efficient versus wind, cost-effective versus wind at the time. And I didn't think that I'd see res again. I just thought that would, um, renewables never get would never get to be price competitive at a level that would make sense. But Res stuck with it for 20 years, and but I had not heard about them or did not know what they were doing in the market. And
right.
so when the recruiter described to me the opportunity and what that business included, it was obviously an interesting opportunity for me.
Yeah, cool. And went in and obviously took over that operation. Executive development is a pretty important part of, a CEO's career and how to continue to keep the saw sharpened, so to speak. What have you found in your most recent CEO role? The kind of things that have really been most beneficial and impactful to you in terms of keeping your skills sharp.
Well, it's staying current to the extent you can with all the best practices out there. We work hard to, well, I work really hard at doing that, but with my team, it's also identifying areas where, as a team, we need some guidance or help, or there's a missing element, and then going out and figuring out how to how to how to bring that in, or get the required expertise or training as part of the development of that leadership team.
Yeah. And part of that, of course, also is culture and communicating that out. You know, clearly pretty much is the CEO's job, unless it's, run and owned by a leading, strong board person or what have you. But again, kind of workplace culture. How do you really work at building that successfully in the organizations you've been in the past?
Well, it's really, at the beginning, going on the journey and figuring out how an organization got to where they are today.
Mm.
It's not about jumping in and saying, oh, we got to do this or that or make a left turn or right turn. It's really spending the time to get to know the journey and and how they landed in their current form, and then figuring out what the path forward looks like. I am a very transparent operator and leader, and I give my folks broad delegations of authority to be successful in delivering on their scope, and having to work with each one of them to figure out how to make that work for them, but then also how to then co-opt, at that N-2 and N-3 level, the folks in a way that inures benefit to the business.
Right. How do you find the best way to get problems solved in the organization? And when do you personally get involved?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I try and I work really hard to delegate, and I want people to come with solutions. And there are many conversations with young folks that are working on assignments, and I look at them and I say, listen, this is a problem. There are issues here you need to address, and I'm looking for you to come up with the solution and make a recommendation based on your expertise. I said, if you give me the same set of issues, I'll have an answer, but you may not like it. So
Best if you come up yourself. Yeah.
yeah, right. It's how do you want to solve this, and I will have a conversation about maybe some additional context they don't have, or different way about thinking about the issue or the problem set, and helping them get their head around a broader way of thinking about a possible solution. But normally I try to leave that up to them.
Yeah. Most companies have some sort of, employee retention issues, particularly with high performing, top talent, so to speak. In the past, I'm sure that challenge has come across your transom from time to time. How do you deal with that? What's kind of the best way? Throwing money at it is kind of the age old one, but I've found in my business that doesn't usually help too much. But are there other strategies you've used to keep high performing people, where you'd like to keep them working for you?
Well, yeah, it's that's also an interesting question, because it did come up at a very large employee get together where we were, team building with one of the groups, and I don't find that there's any science to it. At the end of the day, if you are creating an environment that gives people opportunities to grow and to learn, and you're including them in in the information, you're giving them the information that allows them to understand how the business is performing, how they're contributing, the challenges you're having with the business, the challenges that you are meeting and addressing and are successfully moving to that next level. I think that is the best way of creating an environment where people want to stay.
Right.
I always tell folks to take the call, and that's not necessarily you think would be an answer from a CEO, but at the end of the day, I'm hoping people want to stay because it's we've given them a great place to work. But if there's somebody out there with an opportunity and I don't have something at the same level, I don't have an opportunity that, or I don't think they're ready for, taking the next step yet for whatever
Right.
reason, or their
Yeah.
manager doesn't, someone else does. Well, they can take that. And the good folks, if they end up departing, many times they come back.
Right.
Sometimes they have awesome careers, but what, I just wish the best for everybody that works for me or in the organizations in which I'm responsible, and then try to create that positive environment for the folks that stay and continue to drive results inside the business.
Yeah. And you're a perfect example of those that have come back. So it does happen.
Yes, absolutely. If you're doing good work and you leave on a positive note, there is no there's typically no negative outcome. In fact, I still remain uh, friends with the person at Worley that hired me. That's now actually the CEO of Worley.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you look for when you're, hiring executive staff, particularly direct reports, and the people you're going to obviously make bets on and you're going to invest in the future? What are those kind of characteristics that you recruit against?
Growth mindset. If I that's a gating item early on. It's understanding how people approach and respond to difficult situations, through their careers. What are the good? What were the challenging things they faced, and how did they respond? For me, learning from everything that happens in your career is the most important, outcome from any situation. From the good, you can take it, you could speed up and do more of it. From the stuff that didn't necessarily go right, you can figure out what that challenge was, and what was that barrier to being successful. What did we miss? What did we get wrong? And then how to not fail going forward. And so that those are the kind of people I'm always looking for, and folks that work transparently. And I use that word a lot, but
Yeah,
it's important that everybody knows how things, how it's going, good and bad, and they know how they're contributing. And that's the key to having everybody on the ship rowing in the same direction
yeah.
versus everyone heading in different directions and causing chaos, so to speak,
Chaos.
inside of the space. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite interview question or a line of inquiry or something that you do, consistently that you found to kind of get at that?
No, in fact, I try to have a conversation with the folks that are going to report to me. Trying to make, trying to figure out very, very early on whether it's going to be a good fit, and then build on, how they describe their, experiences, and ask probing questions inside of those responses. So
Yeah.
really listening and then engaging, but not really going through I don't have a pass fail type question.
Right.
Uh, and it's not, and I don't, and although I should probably do better on the science part of it, that's not really the path I head down typically.
Well, John, we're just about out of time. You've been very generous today, but we always have one last question we ask all our CEO guests, and that's what career and life advice would you give to someone that maybe has their own eyes or has their eyes on their own corner office someday?
I think being authentic, being present with the folks that work for you, and being inclusive, asking for opinions, and really listening, and thoughtfully engaging with folks as you go through your career. Don't be afraid to take risks, as long as people understand what those risks are and you are working within the envelope of the risk profile for whatever you're driving at the time. Um, there, there's again, there's no magic really. It's just always taking advantage of opportunities that present themselves, to the extent they make sense for you. They're things that you're interested in doing and pursuing. You know, but you really have to care about people. And for me, the thing that gets me up every day is having the opportunity to create an environment in which people can be successful, both personally and professionally. And that, I think is kind of like a foundational element for getting to the corner office.
My guest today is John Rohde. He's most recently the CEO of RES Americas. He's an experienced and strategic executive and transformation leader with over 3 decades of experience in leadership in the energy sector, including renewables. And he's known for identifying strategies to enhance companies' financial performance and industry positioning. John Rohde, thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.